somewhere far away, and they're about to just suddenly appear. And look, right on cue, there he is, the man himself, at 5:45 in the morning in an absolute freezing cold Edinburgh day. Here is Ewan. How are you doing?
Very well. I'm competing with Hurricane Ophelia, which is making a heck of a noise outside the window.
Amazing.
Well,
it's obviously good to see you up, and always wonderful to see you can operate at all times of the day, Ewan. We've got quite a crowd here who are looking forward to hearing, I suppose, some of your reflections on what they can expect from the Design Thinking for Learning Incubator. Mm-hmm. And certainly having someone like Ewan who always knows how to tell a great tale. Some of them true, some of them bend truth, but, I think either way, the point here that we're making is just how much we can change people's thinking by getting them through a fairly hectic and rigorous process of challenging the way they think and the way they work. And certainly that's something that Ewan does to us all the time. He's an expert at it. And Ewan is going to tell us a little bit about what that takes to be an expert at it.
Thank you.
Over to you, Ewan.
Well, good morning, very early morning, good afternoon, I think, for most of you. I hope you're well, and it's not too hard for me to be up at this time. I've just come back from seeing a wonderful school beginning a journey itself in Istanbul on design thinking, and they're not using it for pedagogy, they're actually using it to totally rethink their strategy, their school strategy. And I think that the first thing I want to say to you is I think you're about to venture on a really exciting journey that isn't just about changing pedagogy in your classroom, even though that's what's on the label, that's what's on the sticker. But we know that we've asked for a senior leader to always be involved in your teams, and that's because so much of what you're looking at for your classrooms is so relevant to the way that you run your school, the way you design your spaces. If we do our job right, if our local team provoke you enough, then by the end of this incubator, you will find that you don't look at the world in the same way again. And it's both beautiful and annoying. You'll go into pizza parlours and McDonald's and be really frustrated by what you see there and want to start changing designs. We've had people change their local coffee shop so that you don't have that annoying wait for the coffee at the end with strangers that don't talk to you. And so they've found that it's not just transformed what goes in the classroom, it's transformed their view. Okay, first question, just put your thumbs up if you can actually understand me. Are we so far so good? Yay. Okay, I'm just making sure no one's doing this. Sometimes people aren't so sure. So I'm going to press record on this meeting, and the reason I'm doing that, my team is, are we recording? We are. My team is too good. Who started recording this? Is that you, Hamish?
I think it was a default setup by Carolyn.
Ah, wonderful. So our team's really good because they remember that I'll forget things at 5:45, 5:45 in the morning. So we're recording this so that those who were not able to make it, or if you want to go back through this and remind yourselves, you'll see it. We'll pop it on YouTube with a private link that only you'll be able to see when it's sent to you. And that will come in an email after this meeting with a summary of what I've said as well. So it's like having subtitles after the fact. So I'm going to keep this quite brief. I realise you've had a hard day already, and you looks like you're mostly still at work and you want to get home and beat some traffic. So first things first, design thinking. I'm going to give you a really simple explanation of what it is now, and then that will be built on, of course, by Lauren, Hamish, and Chantel when you meet them up on November 2nd. But put really simply, design thinking just means that you design your thinking. And it's nothing more and nothing less than that. When I started this firm 8 years ago, we were the only people in the education field talking about design thinking, and there was very little, if anything, online about it. And since then, there is a plethora of beautifully mediocre PDFs that you can download and linear graphs that show you what design thinking is in different processes. There are flow charts, Venn diagrams, you name it. If you have a fetish for infographics, you will find a meaningless, useless infographic somewhere online to help you understand what it isn't. But you have one advantage over everyone else who's Googling. You are educators. And as teachers, you already do a lot of the thinking part. If not, you're the experts in the thinking part. So then the big question is, well, what does it mean when you really design your thinking? And we are going to make reference to things that you are already really familiar with. I'm a huge fan of helping schools discover for example, Harvard Project Zero thinking routines. If they've not got a consistent way of thinking, then using a Harvard Project Zero thinking routine is a wonderful, easy first step. But it is just a first step. What about the design part? How does that change things? Well, it means that we can take some of the traditional things that you already use, those thinking routines, those activities, your questioning tactics in classroom, and we can start to really think about how they apply. Design has an implication that you apply your thinking to things. So it's not just Socratic discussion around a table and wasn't that nice, and then we'll all go off and have a coffee. It's the thinking part being applied to, in a big way, make the world better. It's applying your thinking in order to learn whether your thinking was right in the first place. So we don't just believe we're right, and we don't just think we're right because we found some references, surnames with dates after them. It's not academic thinking in that perspective. It's not because we found two other people who agree with us that we know we're right. In design thinking, that's not good enough. Designing your thinking means that you do need to think, but you also apply what you discover to test whether your ideas are true. And if they're not true, you go back and you keep trying again. And the team will take you through on November 2nd, a whirlwind day. It's not an exhausting day. We actually give you precious time just to sit in your team designing and thinking differently and beginning to plan what you want to do for that first sprint of work. So because each of you already is a design thinker in some kind of way, we have one first preparation task that we would like you to do. And I'll put a reminder of this in the email. But it's a really simple preparation task. We want you to reflect and note down where you think you already have some design thinking going on in using the very simple definition I gave you. So where do you already see people designing their thinking before they then go ahead and do or think? And a couple of clues as to whether you'll find what you're looking for. The first thing is what we call iterative practice. That means that people try small steps to get feedback, and then they try more small steps before they advance. So do you see that? Or in your school, do you just do initiatives where we spend a lot of money before we've done anything, and then by gosh, it's going to work. It's got to work because we spent all that money, time and effort on it. Well, there's a few guilty smiles. I love it. So we've got some undesigned thinking, but where do you see design thinking where people are doing that? That's one clue. So where do you see that iterative practice? What other clues might there be? One clue might be that people walk around with some kind of writing implement on them so that when they see stuff that doesn't work or see stuff that does work, they note it down. Maybe your principal does that. Maybe it's the most junior member of the staff. Maybe it's the janitor in your school. Sometimes it's the cafeteria people. I don't know if you've seen this before, but cafeteria people with a little notepad, and during the lunch service, they'll look to see what's working and what's not working, which dishes are being served up and which ones aren't. They're not looking for data. They don't want a computer spreadsheet telling them whether potatoes are more popular than carrots. They'll look, they use their eyes, and they make a note of it. So are you mostly using that big data and crunching it and creating spreadsheets and Gantt charts? Or do you see people out with notepads using what you might call a human approach to understanding a challenge. That's also a clue that there might be some design thinking going on. So keep a lookout. Where do you think there's design thinking going on? We'd like you to make a note. It's a great excuse to buy yourself a nice new moleskin. So make a note of what you think might be design thinking and where you think you're seeing it. And you've got a few weeks to do that before November 2nd. The where you think it's happening is important, because when you all come back together, you're going to share what you've got. Feel free to do that before. It's lovely to see some of you sitting in teams already. So I can see Westbourne gangs partly sat down there. I can see the Alcirat College guys all sat round in a huddle in a windowless room, it looks like. We need to get you a room with windows if you don't have one. But there is one. It's behind us. Great. It's good old pantomime jokes. It is behind me. So the thing that I need you to do is, you can do this before, meet up together before you come on November 2nd and share what you've found, but you will also have time, as I say, precious time, just to sit together in a team. That's really the key preparation task. Look for it, not just in your classrooms, but look for it out and about in your school. A little bit about the team who are taking you through this. So you've met Hamish already. He was very kind to introduce me when I came in, and the three of them have been looking after you while I've been scrabbling for a coffee. So Hamish will be, he's based in Melbourne, and he'll be there along with Lauren, who is, give us a wave, Lauren, just so people can see. So Lauren is based in Sydney, and she will be leading this along with Hamish for your November 2nd day. The team have been taking feedback from what we did earlier this year in our first run of this incubator, and we're using that feedback to make some changes to the way that the programme works. And Lauren, along with colleague Chantel, who's based down in Adelaide, Chantel is obviously a design thinker because she has the obligatory post-its on the wall behind her. There's nothing written on them, it's just to make her look clever. So Lauren, Chantel, along with Hamish, have been tweaking this programme to make it even better from the first run. And these three will be coaxing you through on November 2nd. November 2nd, we would love to see you at 9 o'clock at the ISV Centre. When we begin, the day begins, unlike most professional learning that you've had, the day is superbly exciting. It's also hard work up here. We will have you, by the end of that day, leaving with a really clear plan and next step of what you are going to do through what we call the first sprint. We are going to look at what design thinking means at different stages in the learning journey on November 2nd, and we're going to ask every individual to make an individual change to their practice in that first sprint. So there's no need for you to agree on what you're going to do. We don't want you watering down your efforts by trying to find something you can all muddle along with together. It is a beautifully selfish moment where you pick your own learning challenge that you want to undertake. And then between that first visit and then the midpoint, you're going to have a combination of a face-to-face coaching session, probably with Lauren. And one of the interesting parts about that is that one morning or afternoon in your school doesn't sound like it creates a lot of impact. Hamish, I know you undertook these coaching sessions face-to-face the last time, and I think that although it is a short face-to-face time together, it's really quite powerful for the schools. The feedback from them has been great, but the feedback from the online coaching to which you have access has been really phenomenal. And so our whole global team, and the global team are asleep at the moment, apart from me, but the whole global team is available and really keen to meet each of you through online coaching. And we don't plan this so much because it's the kind of thing at this point in the day where you need it most. You've tried something new in your classroom. It's not quite worked out the way you thought it would. And you want to find out how you could change it, whether you did it right, whether there's an alternative way to do things. And so we can arrange online coaching pretty quickly, maybe not same day, although sometimes I think we have done that, but certainly within a few days. And it means that we're able to sit one-to-one or one-to-two if you're working with a buddy, and talk through what you had done. We're able to look at how well you've done to get to the point you've done so far, how you've made that success happen, whatever small success you've managed even. We're able to look at a plethora of options, things that you could do to resolve the challenge that you see. And then we make you wrap up by choosing an option. It's called the GROW model. It's very well known in coaching circles, and I saw it actually being used in a elementary school class as a way to get students participating in designing their own learning. It's very quick to run through. So a coaching session might only be 25 minutes or 30 minutes, but it can unstick you from the sticky moment that you're in. And so that online coaching is something that we know most teachers have not used before. It's not something that you're used to using, and we will cajole you, will encourage you to use it, because everyone who has really found it quite transformative. And where schools have got engaged with it, actually there's an impact in the way that the school chooses to do its own coaching in the future too. We've got a midway point visit. That's where we reflect on all your mutual successes, and we look at the things that didn't quite work out to understand why. And then you're into sprint 2. And that second sprint is where we get a little bit more ambitious. And we want you to undertake ambitious change. Why? Because it's only for 6 or 7 weeks. Ambitious change in 6 and 7 weeks is not too threatening to the status quo because it's such a short period of time. It's also towards the beginning of your academic session. So you've got plenty of time to correct course if it really does go head over heels and not quite right. Hamish, I'm going to refer to you, but from our last incubator, did anyone undertake ambitious change that went horribly wrong? I don't think so.
No, Ewan. There were some pretty impressive projects. People were scared and happy in equal measure, but there were no tragedies and there were no breakouts from the zoo, and the world did keep turning.
Yeah,
and people managed to do some pretty cool things.
So I reckon, one of the things that the team will talk about a lot, Lauren in particular, will be pushing you to really get ambitious. Ambitious is about saying more than just your four-walled classroom. Ambitious is sometimes taking a really simple idea, but trying to make it happen in lots of places. Or it's taking a more complex idea and trying to make it happen in a few places. But there is an equation there, there's a ratio. And that's what we mean by ambition. It's finding something that does present a meaty challenge for your school and testing it out over a 6-7 week period. Because if you can't try an ambitious idea over 6 to 7 weeks, then I can tell you now, your school can never try an ambitious idea. If you can't do it over 6 or 7 weeks at an easy point like the beginning of a school year, believe me, it's never going to happen. So every school leader sat with us today will take that on board and be very familiar with it, I'm sure. But I hope that as teachers, you take that on board as well. This is a real opportunity to be a key player in helping your school open up the lid on what's possible and what your students are capable of too. I hope that excites you rather than terrifies you. And we'll find out the effect of it in the last visit. Lauren and Chantel will be there to welcome you in your last visit and undertake a really, really great reflection session that helps you work out what your next ambition plan is going to be outside the incubator. By this final point, we think that an incubator is there like life support. It's there to give you the kind of support you need when you need friends and you need coaches and you need people to help you on your way. But by this last sprint, you should be leading the session. You will be celebrating your successes and you will be planning what you do for the next iteration, the third sprint. And that third sprint is however long you make it. It could be a couple of months, and it's however ambitious you want to make it. but it will be yours. And by that point, you will leave this incubator and go on to do some amazing things. And we've had great stories emerging already from our incubatees from the first run. So I've given you a really brief description of what design thinking is, designing your thinking. I've given you a really short preparation task to undertake as you go over the next few weeks, looking at noting down where you think you might see some design thinking happening already. What is it? Where does it happen? Who's doing it? And I've given you an overview of our 3 touch points face-to-face, that face-to-face coaching in between those sessions within your school. And then finally, the online coaching, which is arguably the invaluable part, where you can tap into the expertise of our varied team. I would love to just I'm going to give a quick explanation of that team too, just so you know who's who. The gang will tell you a little bit more, but I was originally a languages teacher in high school, and then worked for the Scottish Government on technology. I was the National Advisor on Technology and where it should go. I was ignored for 3 years and left. And then when I created NoTosh, they hired us back because they realised that it was all true and that we were all doomed. But you know, life moves on, and the specialisms that I have in technology and languages today feel like frankly a long time ago. I spend most of my time now working with school leaders in particular, and that whole K-12 strand. I would love the rest of the team to introduce themselves in a kind of short Facebook post's worth, just to give a little bit of background. Lauren, can I kick off with you? So Lauren's over in Sydney, and frankly one of the best kindergarten and elementary teachers I think I've ever seen teach. So I've given you part of your introduction already, Lauren. Can you just give a little, you know, your passions and what you really enjoy within your elementary school teaching?
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren, and yes, I do love kindergarten. There's no secret about that. I've worked in all areas of primary, and I'm really enjoying being able to create a shared language between the school in terms of teachers, students and parents. So it's a whole community thing. And I think when you start to delve into inquiry and design thinking, when you realise that you can get everybody on board, the journey is just so much more exciting and easier for you if you can get buy-in from everybody. So I'll be really looking to try and help you do some of that. So that's one of the areas I'm most passionate about. And
Lauren had, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, younger even, knowing not just what the design thinking meant, but also able to put it into practice. And she's also the only person who has ever got me into school wearing pajamas. I don't know how that happened, but it was... I was just as shocked as you, Ewan, when you showed up in your pajamas. Exactly. So walking through Sydney in pajamas, you know, some people do it. Chantel, I'm going to come to you. So Chantel is, I don't know if this is flattering or not. Chantel gave perhaps the most crazy teach meet talk I think I've ever heard. There was no talking; it was more dancing, singing. There was maybe involved, but she's also an amazing facilitator based down in Adelaide. So Chantel, just give a little background as well about your passions and where you've spent a lot of your teaching time.
Hi everyone, I'm really excited to be working with you guys in a couple of weeks. So I was a teacher for 15 years in a whole bunch of different schools, ACT public schools, Northern Beaches Christian School in Sydney, and here in Adelaide in an independent school. My passion is that kids can do it. If you just release them and encourage them, they can achieve the most amazing things that blow your minds. And I really want to challenge what a lot of teachers say, which is, I just don't think the kids can do that. Or what if they don't succeed? I'm really passionate about the fact that kids can succeed and do succeed over and over again. And I hope that inspires you throughout this incubator.
It's a good point. And I think we're incredibly lucky with working with all of your schools, because I think that you also share that bias that your students are pretty incredible and can do some amazing things. Chantel is going to kind of, as Google would say, 10 times that and ask, well, hold on, okay, they're great so far. How much greater can they be? And I think it's going from that, from good to great. We're going from great to stratospheric with this gang. So I'm looking forward to seeing how you push them. Hamish, can you just as well give a quick overview? So Hamish, originally, in my mind, libraries was what always came to mind because we hired them out of the State Library of Victoria. But having known you now for nearly 4 years, there's a heck of a lot more going on in there as well, and other passions that you have related to learning. Just share a little bit of those.
Look, I've seen some pretty diverse learning environments in my teaching career, and places like the UK, Japan, running a city school for Year 9 kids for a number of years in the heart of Melbourne CBD, where we got to design our own learning. So the entire city was the playground. And then at the library, I was probably one of those really annoying people that tried to disrupt what the library had been doing over the last century by changing some of the things that it's done. I guess my passions then are about being really ambitious in the learning that we're designing and really actually allowing others to actually come in and help co-design that learning with us. I think some of the most exciting projects I'm working on at the moment around Australia are where teachers and students are at the same table actually designing the learning together and seeing how that actually opens up all sorts of opportunities and doors for people. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that's actually some of the things that come out of this incubator.
Brilliant. And I think it's a really good point. There's, a lot of events that you maybe go to. People say, oh, wouldn't it be great to have the kids here? And the kids are definitely not at your first face-to-face meeting. You may choose to be bringing them along to the final celebration event to show the part that they've played. It raises a really important point. When we talk about a sprint, it's not the day that we all spend together face to face. It's not the time that you spend with Lauren, with Chantel, with Hamish. A sprint is kicked off at these face-to-face events and then lasts until the next face-to-face event. So when you're working together as teachers and leaders, do think about how you can engage with your students, parent groups, and bring them in on what you're trying to do. And that case in point, I'll just go to Saturday, just past. We had, if you can think, on Wednesday last week, I walked into Istanbul International Community School for the first time. They had been spending 3 or 4 weeks immersing themselves in what made their school tick, what was going on, so that they could design a new strategy eventually. So that Wednesday was my first time in, just looking around, seeing what they had produced, meeting the students, meeting teachers, squeezing some final observations out of them. On Thursday, we brought all that data together, we synthesized it. We took, I think, about 2,500 data points, and from that, the design team discovered about 16 huge questions that they felt needed answered. And the design team wasn't some, groovy, goatee sporting set of designers. The design team was students from grade 6 up. It was 3 or 4 parents. It was the financial person at the school and a couple of local staff. It was the head teacher and teachers from each division of the school. This design team of 15, 16 people was able to crunch that data in a day, come up with these big whys. On the Friday, the leadership team came together and 7 people took those 15, 16 big questions and discovered that there was some commonality. They used some of the strategies you'll learn with Lauren on the first kickoff day around synthesizing, bringing things together. And they were able to narrow it down to 5 huge how might we questions that they felt could steer the future of the school for the next 4 years or so, 5 years. On Saturday morning, we went down to the banks of the Bosporus, and through the traffic pollution and the fire from the kitchen down the road, it was crazy. It was like something out of I've had a blank. It was like, what's the Game of Thrones? It really was like Game of Thrones. We were sat there, 200 people on the banks of the Bosporus, surrounded by swirling smoke from the fire that had been happening down. And we had a design morning with 160 parents and students. We had all the school staff, all the operational teams. language barriers and everything. We had the whole teaching staff there, so 200 people in total. And we developed 3,500 ideas to solve the 5 big challenges the leadership team had defined the previous day. And they narrowed it down to 42 prototypes that as a whole school they could undertake. And it wasn't the teachers doing all those prototypes. Some of the students took ownership of projects they wanted to take on, some of the teachers' leadership team. In short, in 3 or 4 days, the feeling of this community was transformed. They were able to work together with their students hand in hand, and they came up with something together that they could never have done alone. And I think that's what I want to leave you with here. You're going to achieve success in this by working together and achieving more together than you ever could do if you were just locked away in your own classroom doing that. And I wish you so well on that journey. Now, I'm happy now just to maybe open up the floor for a couple of minutes. If you have questions that are burning, that you would like to ask about the initial part of this process, feel free to ask it now. We'll send an email afterwards, and you can always reply by email saying, I didn't really understand that. Can you send me a clarification for my team? Okay, but I'll open it up. Now, and what's beautiful is I can see smiles, and I'm not sure if those smiles are because Hamish, Lauren and Chantel are pulling faces. I'm not sure if it's because I'm overly enthusiastic about being on the banks of the Bosphorus, or if you're just having a great day and it's almost the end of the day. But feel free to flick your microphone on if you have a question, and you can just pop it in now. I feel like a priest at a wedding. Does anyone have any reason? Okay, well, I'm going to assume then that either you understood nothing or you understand everything. And I'm going to wish you well on this journey. I'm going to see you again on November 2nd at some other ridiculously early time late time in the evening for me. So I really look forward to that. I'm going to leave you in some great hands for your first sprint. And if you have any feedback, if you have any questions, the easiest way to do that is to drop an email. And if you drop an email to our general email address, info@notosh.com, then there's far better chance it gets picked up quickly by someone in the team, and we can answer that straight away. All of this will go in an email to you in any case, and that email will probably come from that email address. So you can always just click reply to that. Okay. Thanks so much for your time. I hope it was enjoyable. I hope it's worthwhile, time well spent for you too, getting your mind in gear for what's coming up. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see these new faces. Lovely to see some familiar faces too, and good to see some old faces as well. So I'll leave you for now, and see you in 3 weeks or so, something like that. Okay then. Bye-bye. We can flick our microphones on and have a Waltons moment now if you wish.
Bye now, boy.
Bye-bye.
Wait a second.
Bye, tomboy.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You have to watch this Westbourne group.
Yeah.
Trouble.
Yeah, there. Right. I'll stop recording now.